Hello, and welcome back to the Kid Code Project, where you can become smarter than your parents. Promise, someday. Okay, this video is video number 6 of the series, and we are programming with Visual Basic. If you've seen the previous 5 videos, and if you've liked them, I appreciate all the likes you've given when you've clicked below. I appreciate all your comments too, because your comments really help me refine the videos I make in the future to make them better for you, and I appreciate any constructive criticism you have, and a little praise doesn't hurt either. Alright, in this video we are going to be working with controls. And what I'm going to do over the next few videos, maybe 2, maybe 3, I'm going to be introducing the most common controls that we'll be using, and how to use them, and really how to make them work for you pretty easily. Now, controls are basically what is in the toolbox over here. Okay, I call them tools because they're in the toolbox. Some people call them controls, some people call them components. Same thing. They're tools, they're components, they're controls. It's all the same thing. You know, programmers, we name everything multiple times for no reasons. Anyway, we've already worked with a few of these, and I am going to focus this video on the 3 main controls you'll be using in your entire programming life. That is a button, labels, and text boxes. Okay, there. Now, if you notice, I've already created a new program from the start page. It's called controls, right? So I didn't go through the whole process on how to create a new program again from the start page, clicking new and naming it and all that, because you already know how to do it. So anyway, this is what I've done. I created a new program called controls, and we now have a button and a label, and we have text box. Now let's talk about buttons. You are probably already familiar with buttons if you've used computers at all, because there are buttons everywhere that you click. You click OK for this, exit that, and blah blah blah. And that's all that's really they're used for, is to give the person that uses your program the ability to click it, send the click event message to you, remember? And then inside of that event handler that you create, you basically do with your program what it requires, right? For example, we're going to turn this into an OK button, okay? And the way we do that is, we've already brought it over, it's button 1 right here. We're going to make it an OK button. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the text of it. And the first thing I'm going to introduce you to again is the ampersand, okay? This is the ampersand right here. I'm not sure why it's called ampersand. Maybe it stands for amp, or I don't know. It's ampersand. What it does when you put it in a string, okay, remember we talked a little bit about strings before. A string being characters, A, B, C, D. In this case is OK. That's a string of characters strung together. When you put it in a string in front of a letter like the O here, what happens is it becomes a hotkey for this button. So I put that there, and I'm going to click here. So now you see the O is underlined. So when the program runs, if the person using your program presses the Alt button and then O, because the O is underlined, just like in the menus up here that are underlined, if they press the O, it will automatically activate the click event of the button, because that's the primary event, right? Because there are other events for buttons, but this will activate the click event. And to show you this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on the button. It automatically creates the unclick of it. Oh, sorry, I was playing with it earlier. This is it right here. It creates the click event. I've already created the event handler because I was playing with it before we started recording. And what's going to happen is when they click it, it's going to show a message box showing the text OK was clicked. Okay. So now that it's like that, I'm going to go ahead and press F5 to run the debugger. Here it is. If I press the Alt button, the O is now underlined. So if I go hold the Alt button and press O, it will automatically generate the click event. Okay, I apologize for that little blip there. For some reason, I was downloading in the background actually slowed my computer down too much, so I had to stop the recording. Anyway, we're back to where we were. So like I was saying, now that we have put the ampersand, let's go to the properties. The ampersand is in front of the O, the letter O. it now has an underlined mark under it, which means it's now a hotkey. So I'm going to press F5, and if I press the Alt button, you will see it's underlined now. It will work. I'm going to close it. Very similar to these up here. So if I press Alt now, you see these are underlined. If I was to press O now, because this is underlined, Alt O, it brings down that menu. It's a hotkey. Same thing works here. Let's create a click event handler. Click being the most common event for the button. And I'm going to put just a message box up. Message boxes are really useful. Oops. I'll let the IntelliSense correct my capitalization. Now then, when the click event for the button is posted in our click event handler, right here, handler, it will basically show a message box saying OK was clicked. Okay, so for now I'm going to press F5 to run it, and I am going to click OK. Boom, there it goes. The event was posted and we handled it. Now, since we put the ampersand in front of the O, it has an underline. This is the programming part. This is our actual program running. If I press Alt now, the Alt button, you see the O is underlined. So if I press Alt and O, it sends the click event as well without even using the mouse. I mean, I can move the mouse way over here. Alt O. Pretty cool. And you will see this used in a lot of programs. Typically, you will see it used like exit. You have the word exit, and the way they do that, let's just change this to exit real quick, right? The way they do that is they go capital E for exit, ampersand XIT, right? Now it looks a little strange, but the ampersand is in front of the X, so the X will now be underlined when they press the Alt button. Okay, let's just run it and see. I'll press the Alt button, it is now underlined. So if I press Alt X, it's going to execute the exact same event, right? Which of course is still set to OK was clicked. Okay, pretty useful. So let's change it back to OK. Ampersand OK. There's our OK button. So that is how you use buttons. It's pretty logical in that it sends the click event, and then whatever we need to have happen in a program, we put inside that event. Now, something that you've probably seen in programs before, and I'm going to drag another button in to explain it. I'll bring another button, and I'm going to click. We're going to call this cancel. Ampersand C-A-N-C-E-L. Cancel. Since the ampersand is now in front of C, it will have an underline under cancel. But what I'm going to do is I am going to make it the enabled property false. Now what happens when you have an enabled property false is you can see it on your program, but you can't use it. It's not enabled. So let me show you. I'm going to press S5. Okay. I can click the OK button. I can press Alt O, but this button doesn't work because it's not enabled, right? So it's real common to not enable a button to do something until the person using your program has finished this stuff up here correctly. You'll see that, like, enter your name, your address, those kind of programs. The continue button, so to speak, will not be enabled until all of the information is entered correctly. So that's pretty key to understand that. It's pretty common. So that's a real quick summarization of buttons, right? We've used them before for various things, but this is what they're really used for. Now, how do we re-enable it? Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much just changing the properties in our code. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the click event for our first button, and let's get rid of this message box, and let's have our program be set up to where they click the OK button, then the cancel button is enabled. It's not really useful, but it shows us how to do it. Now, this is the OK button, and this is the cancel button, but you'll see they're named button 1 and button 2. In my programming, this is how I name things, because remembering what button 1 and button 2 are for, it gets to be kind of confusing. So I always give them a useful name. Boom, boom, name. Here we go. Button 1 is here. It's the OK button, so I'm going to rename it OK BTN, meaning button. Okay. Now if you click it, it's now the OK button. Now this is our cancel button, but it's currently called button 2. So let's rename it to cancel BTN, cancel button. Okay, but what happens if we double click it here? It still uses this event handler, right? So what you really want to do, we're going to delete that. What you really want to do is name things on your screen before you create the event handler for them, because when you look at the code, it has the same name, right? I deleted the click event for button, the OK button. Now create it again. It's OK button click. So when you're looking at the code, you know what it's for. In fact, we're going to use that right now because we know the cancel button is what we want to do. So what we're going to do is when they click on the OK button, the click event happens, and then we're going to enable the cancel button, right? Just for demonstration purposes. Cancel button. See, it's already in our list. IntelliSense is so helpful. Dot enabled, and then remember the assign true. So what's going to happen is when they click the OK button, the cancel button enable property will become true, which means it will be enabled. Okay, if you set it to false, it would just stay unenabled or disabled. Okay, just test it. F5. Okay, you click the OK button, boom, cancel is now enabled. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's how buttons are generally used. Let's talk about labels. Labels are used to put text on your programs, so your people using your programs, your users, can read it and understand it, right? When it's used like this, this label will usually have the text in it describing what the person needs to type in here, right? So if it was like a program getting information like names and stuff, enter your name and address and all that, you would change the text to something like name. And that way they would know that they need to type their name in here. Okay, that's how it's usually used. You can also, I'm going to get another one, use it to give even more information. Oops, okay, that's label number 2. And I want to change the text to say something like please enter the information below, and there it is. And it helps the users understand what that part of the program's for. And you can make these really, really long. In fact, let's find out what the maximum length is. Is there a maximum length? Here you can change the way it looks, the fonts. It's enabled, tabs visible. I think you can set the maximum length. I know you can in Textboxes, and I'll show you that in a minute. Max size. No, that's the width and height. Maybe not. Yeah, that's okay anyway, because you really don't want to write a book like this. But I do want to show you one thing about this. You see how it has a dotted line around it with the square? That is set by the one thing is text alignment, which means it goes to the top left, which means everything is aligned up here. Let's change the text alignment to be over here. Now in this format you can't really tell much of a difference. Sorry about that, got a phone call. Okay, what I was doing is, you see how it is lined right here? You can actually change the auto size. Now this means how it looks on your screen. Turn auto size to false, and now you see that you have handles. So you can actually change the way it looks and it's laid out on your screen. Now you remember the layout? I went up and I had the text alignment like this. If I click here, you will see it move. See? It moved its location. You can use these to help determine where you want to put it. Let's say we want it to be centered and on the bottom. It's now centered on the bottom. I like to turn auto size off. I would rather have control over the way it looks, because the Visual Basic, the compiler, does a really good job in laying things out, but I like to do mine my own way. So I always turn auto size to false, and then I typically have this set in the middle. goes right in the exact middle, so it's even all the way around. Now, that is pretty much all that you use labels for. You typically don't use the events with them, though you can. For example, if let's create a click event here, this label now has a click event, but you really don't use that in programming. Just remember a couple of things. Make certain that the size, the font size of the text on your screen is always the same size, right? Because it keeps it consistent. Also, make certain it's big enough to read. If you set it to 2, you can't even read it. You see what I'm saying? Look at that. Can't read it. I typically make them bigger, like that, right? Because I guess because I'm old and I need big words to read, big letters rather. There. Now you see that? Pretty cool. Like I think we've talked about before on these, is you can lock the controls so they can't move. If you didn't see that, that was a B video, like a 2B, maybe a 3B video. But you can do that, so you can lock it. And that is basically how you use labels. Pretty useful. Now, let's finish up everything by using the text box. Right now it's locked. I'm going to unlock it. Right? Now, the same thing with text boxes is I usually name them to where they make sense. Okay? Because if you have a lot of text boxes on the screen, it can get confusing in your programming. Since I already have name above it, I'm going to put name tbox. This is now going to be the name of this is name tbox because we want to get the user's name and it's a text box. Okay? Now, there we go. Yep. I am going to turn auto size off again because I don't like the auto size of this. There's a lot of things I want to talk about on this one because text boxes are used a lot. Where is it? Like I told you before, no editing here. You're going to get what you get, which is reality. Let's see, auto size. Oh, wait. It comes that way naturally. Duh. Okay. So you can grab the handle and you can make it any length you want. I suggest you set the length to be what you think is going to be entered. If it's a name, you might want to have it this big. But if it's somebody's age, you might want to have it this big because, you don't have but maybe at most 3 characters in age, right? 100, But I doubt anybody 100 is going to be using your program, but you never know. Okay. Now, that is one of the cool things about the text boxes. You can automatically adjust the sizing. And here are enabled. You could do the same thing with a text box that we showed you earlier with the buttons. You can make it enabled. If it's not enabled, it will still be there. They just can't enter anything into it. Okay. Maximum length. This is really cool. Right now, the maximum length is set to 32,767. That is how many characters can currently be entered into this text box. That's a lot. In fact, let's do it. Okay, F5 to debug. Going to click in here, and I'm just going to hold down the A button. And it's going to go and go and go and go. Right now, it looks like it's at an end, but it's really not. It's still adding them, and it's just moving them on down. That's crazy. So I'm going to use the arrow button now to move everything to the side. See how it's still moving? It's still going to the front. It's because the maximum length is set to be so big. You could write a short story in one text box. So I don't suggest you do that. If, for example, you're getting somebody's name, you can set the maximum length to be 20 characters long. Like their first name. It shouldn't be more than 20 characters, right? A, B, C, D, and that kind of stuff. So let's do that now. I set it to the max length to 20. Okay, so let's run debug. And let's enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. 1, 1, 1. You hear that noise? Dang, dang, dang. We've hit the maximum length, which is 20. And that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay? That's a very useful property because if you set it, you can make certain they don't enter some crazy stuff into your programs. Okay. Now what else is really cool? Multi-line. If you saw me typing it before, it was just like one line, right? If you turn multi-line to true, you can actually grab this handle and drag it down, right? So to show you this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it smaller, that way, and I'm going to run debug again. But first, I'm going to increase the maximum number of characters to 200, so I can actually show you entering a lot of characters. F5, let's enter it. I'm just going to type gibberish. Now you have multiple lines that go down. That's pretty useful if you're getting something like an address or a lot of information, or you're actually getting a lot of information or a whole string of characters from your program's user. So that is a very useful feature. And I'm going to turn multi-line off. It's back to false. Now, password characters. If you've ever used a program, you know that you can enter passwords into systems, like enter your password, right? So, in fact, I'm going to do that right now. Copy, paste. Okay. I'm going to change the text of this label to password. I'm going to change the name of this text box to password dbox. Okay. And what we're going to do here, let's say we want to get somebody's password that is no more than 8 characters long, max length, and we don't want everybody to see what their password is that they're typing, right? So what you do is you put a character here that will cover up what they're actually typing, and you've probably seen this. Let's put the asterisk there, right? And since it's only 8 characters long, I'm going to make it shorter, look like that, and let's just press F5. So for example, we now have the ability for a user to type in their name and a password. Ooh, look, it even knows that my cap locks is on. Cool. Now it's off. Now it's on. Okay. And my password, I'm not going to tell you. Like that. I entered the password. The actual text of my password is in that text box, but it doesn't show what I typed. It uses the asterisk to cover it up so people don't get your password. But when you get that text out of the text box in your program, you actually get the real text that was entered, not those asterisks. Really cool. And it even detects, when you set that feature to password character and you run it, it automatically detects that your cap locks button is on. Because sometimes people, they create a password using lowercase letters, and then if the cap locks is on, they'll be entering the same thing over and over again, but since the cap locks is on, it's not the same text, right? Big A is not the same thing as little a. Okay. And I think we are pretty well done. I mean, we've talked about visibility and other controls before and enabling. I want to tell you one more thing that I use a lot is sometimes you can show information in a text box and not let the user change it. And to do that, you change the property of read only to true. Okay? So if I press F5, that property is now set to true. It's there, it's enabled, but they can't change anything. So if there's already information in there, they can't change it. Okay? Now, what do we do with the text that's in the text box? You basically get it out. For example, let's say somebody clicks the OK button. We're going to take this cancel button, enable true out here, because we know how it works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a message box, and I am going to put here a text that says the user entered this. I'm going to add a space, and here is the magic ampersand again. When you're using an ampersand with text in your code, what it does is it takes one string of characters and it grabs it and puts it together. Excuse me just a minute. Okay, I apologize for that. I got buzzed for something real quick. I'm back. So So what I'm saying is the ampersand here doesn't make it a hotkey, but what it does is it basically sticks two strings of characters together. The first string that we're going to be putting is here. The user entered this with a colon and a space. Because if you don't put a space, it will actually put the words side by side and it won't look right. And what is we're going to get and put on the other end is the text that was entered in the name text box. So how we do that? Well, just like we did before with anything, we type in what we're going to work with. And see right there, name tbox, double click it. Dot gives us all the available options, but what we want is what they typed in, which is their text. And that's it. So what's going to happen now? F5 to find out. Let's type in come on, Greg. There. Now when I click this button, it's going to take the message box and it's going to put the first part of the string, which is the user entered this colon and a space, and then it's going to take the text out of the text box and stick it to the end of that line. Just like that. The user entered this, which is the original. Let me move it so you can see it. There we go. This is the original text that was entered in the message box here, and the ampersand is used to put them together, and we got the name text box text and put it there. Pretty useful. Okay. Now with that said, I think we have covered all of the all of the properties of TextBox. Now what I suggest you do is go through and play with some of these other features and properties here. Play with your code. Remember, you can't break anything, and you will find that you can do a lot with these three components because they're pretty much the most common ones. You can create all kinds of really interesting programs just by using these three: the buttons, the labels, and the text box. If you have any questions about anything, post it in the comments. I'll be glad to help you out. Again, thanks to everybody for all the likes. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'll be glad to have you on the subscription list. And any problems, post it. If you like it, like it. I like everything you guys are doing. I've been getting some really good feedback from some of the projects you guys are working on. I'm impressed by it. And until the next time, I will see you later.